It's easy to point fingers. For Palestinians to point to the displacement brought about by Israel's founding, and for Israelis to point to the constant hostility and attacks throughout its history, from within its borders as well as beyond. But if we see this conflict only from one side or the other, then we will be blind to the truth. Palestinians must abandon violence. Resistance through violence and killing is wrong, and it does not succeed. And as president, I will never compromise when it comes to Israel's security.
Resolutions in the legislature of Ontario send a message. They are about moral suasion that's pertinent to any given subject, and I'm passionate about my resolution and its subject, Israeli Apartheid Week, a term that I am frankly sick of hearing.
IAW stands for Israeli Apartheid Week. It's in its 6th year right now. That started in Toronto. It's a series of campus events that are educational, community-building events that bring to life the Israeli policies that create apartheid within the State of Israel and the Palestinian occupied territories. In the organizing I've done both this year and last year, I've never seen anti-Semitism on campus. I've heard anti-Zionism quite a lot. I speak a lot of anti-Zionism. I don't believe in it, but I do not encounter anti-Semitism at all.
IDF Week is an initiative that just started this year to combat Israel Apartheid Week. And basically we're just standing up to defend the Israeli Defense Forces that protect the Jewish state of Israel.
Israel is fighting a regime that won't even acknowledge its existence. It does not want to have peace. And so not only that, but they're also firing rockets from schools, from hospitals, using suicide bombers.
The use of the phrase Israeli Apartheid Week is about as close to hate speech as one can get without being arrested, and I'm not certain it doesn't actually cross that line.
The MP who put forward the private members bill in the Ontario legislature is from Thornhill, which is the most Jewish populated area.
I want the name changed. That's simple. It's just wrong. This is a resolution that is entirely appropriate for discussion here today and this afternoon in the Ontario legislature. It's about an event in our province, on our campuses particularly, and most significantly, it's about our values, because our values are the same values as those of Israel: democracy, education, individual freedom, human rights, and the right to defend oneself from aggressors. In fact, the values of Judaism and of Israel were bedrock for the foundation of Canada.
They don't want Israel's war crimes to come to light. They want a conversation about it banned. You can't talk about it. Your label is anti-Semitic and charged with a hate crime if you talk about it.
Anyone who is critical, I'm speaking as someone in the US, anyone who's critical of Israel is basically committing academic professional suicide. Within the US only, a recent article last year counted over 33 campus organizations that monitor the activities of pro-Palestinian professors and harass them and intimidate them. We're looking at one who's been intimidated and harassed and threatened and received emails. This is for speaking out for justice.
Well, let me tell you let me just give you some background about what it's like to be teaching in Ontario. During the Israeli bombing of Gaza at the beginning of 2009, when teachers came back from their winter breaks, we were greeted with a memo that specifically directed teachers not to discuss the bombing in the classroom, that if students raised the issue, we were to change the topic, and if we had to address it, to do so only in general, non-political language. And there was no issue of sympathy or no directive to teachers to be sympathetic to students who might be affected by the bombing and to acknowledge that in our class. Because sometimes we get those kinds of things when, you know, there's an event in another part of the world that affects many of our students.
When the leader of the opposition was accusing the Jewish Democratic State of Israel of war crimes, our Prime Minister had the decency to defend that state's right of self-protection. When, Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister had the decency to defund the Palestinian Authority upon the election of Hamas, which was opposed by that party. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister had the decency to ensure that Canada was the first country in the world to withdraw from the hateful Durban process, which initially was opposed by members of Parliament on that side. Yes, Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has represented this country's fundamental decency on the world stage.
If people like Stephen Harper, for example, are going to be taking this pro-Israel line and saying and you know, positioning themselves as the defender of Jews, then it kind of loses legitimacy if Jewish people don't believe in you. So you have to somehow have some mechanism for delegitimizing Jewish people who speak out about this.
You can't speak out about Israel because Israel speaks for all Jews. And for me, I stand up and say, Israel does not speak for me, that I have to do that. And I did not choose this battle. I did not choose to actively support Palestine, because if I don't speak up, I'm complicit. And I refuse to be complicit in war crimes as a Jew to this country that is trying to speak for me.
I received prank phone calls, hate mail. My former superintendent wrote me this big, long, angry letter. I had a lot of very angry people, you know, coming up to me at that time. I just stopped answering my phone at one point, and you know, every time I went on my email, I was like, "Oh God, what's going to be here now?"
Israelis do not make a differentiation between what they do for Israel and what they do for Judaism. And that I think that differentiation is hugely important, that we need to step back and say the difference between Jews and Israel.
The residents of Bilayin come every week to the village to basically make the point that this is their land that has been stolen to build this wall, their land which has also been stolen to build the illegal Jewish settlement of Modi'in Elite, which is just beyond the wall. And they are also making the point that no amount of tear gas, no amount of... They're throwing straight at me! Sorry, we're under attack!
Okay, Jackie, are you...
They're obviously trying to take us off the air.
If you go into a village and, like, completely destroy it and you say, I'm doing this because I'm Jewish, that creates anti-Semitism. Those people will go back and say, I hate those Jews, look what they just did to my home. And that's perpetuating anti-Semitism. And you're saying there's anti-Semitism in the world. Well, yes, but you're not helping solve the problem when you're doing those kind of actions.
وترفع في سماء الكون أعلام فلسطيني وتهدر كلمتي تمضي فلسطيني فلسطيني